up to speed, up to speed, up to speed.
Live from the apocalypse, in this case, Mount Sinai is allegorical. This is State of the Game. Thank you for being here, one and all. We are rich with the love of the community here. My name is Dano, and the stenographer ends every one of my sentences with an exclamation point. It's just how I talk. It's okay. And my co-host is a tier 6 OnlyFans subscriber. He's like managing the light bill. You know what I mean? Like that, he's in. That's K Diggy. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you. To give you some real love, K. Like I was like, I always like, man, maybe I would be good at a podcasting thing. But the problem is I'd be linked up with normal people who would get like bored after a few episodes or just not want to keep doing it. And I'm like, no, I'm obsessive. I want to do hundreds of these fucking things. And I finally found someone sick enough to do it with me. So thank you very much. We're doing it.
Yeah, man. It's a pleasure.
So we're focusing on Sour Dub by Rich Jones and Sleep Sinatra as SINAI. Sleep couldn't be here. He's sick. But we do have one of the most talented people I've encountered in this journey. Rich Jones from Chicago. I've learned so much just being around and following your career. And I've already heard people say that they like Sour Dub better than Smoke Detector, which I understand why, but I'm like, hold up, Smoke Detector. I'm still very protective over Smoke Detector.
As you should be. That's a good ass album.
Right.
No, you're very kind. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to get to know y'all too. I'm so glad we all got to link, like, for real, for real. I know we linked in Chicago, but then when we were on tour back in the fall, it was really, really cool for me to come to your turf.
Oh shit, that was awesome.
You know,
yeah.
It was yeah. Like, so, you know, it's been cool to be on this journey with y'all too, and hopefully we keep bumping into each other and doing fun stuff. Man, as far as what's better or worse, I mean, I don't know. I think Smoke Detector versus you can't have one without the other. I think the lessons I took from one got put into the next, and so they're related, you know, in that sense. I think one thing that Sour Dub has going for it is it's, I think, a little tighter. I Smoke Detector was such a labor of love, and I was just living in this universe and in this space, and it was, yeah, I don't know, it felt very, I guess in hindsight, I don't want to say gilded, but like something about it was just, yeah, I don't know, it was a really interesting experience to have, as someone being like, damn, I'm really excited about this is cool, this world I've built. And I think in terms of like what happened after in life, it kind of killed some of those parts of me that could, I think, fall in love with it in the ways that I did. But it's not a bad thing. That sounds so sad. And I want to stress, like, in some ways, I'm actually quite grateful that that's what happened, because I think Sour Dub is, it's a maturation of self in a lot of ways, where it's just like, this is, now we're getting more, you made this really cool psychedelic hip hop album, and it's really beautiful and wonderful. But like, for this next one, it's game time. You got to do it again. And part of that for me is, I think, I don't want to use the word, serious too heavily, but I think, yeah, there was definitely, I think, heavier tones going into it than with Smoke Detector in that way. So, I think in that sense, it's a tighter album. I think it's there's no fat. It's,
Right, right.
you're getting as expansive and efficient a listen as I could provide. And for that, I if someone prefers that, I can understand it. But I think
Yep.
it wouldn't hurt if you listened from Smoke Detector to um This Is Decidedly So, the EP with Golden Beats, and then this album. In some ways, I mean,
Yep.
the real lineage of Run, if you want to talk about it, goes back to 2020, because we could go with How Do You Sleep at Night, and then there's kind of the
Mm.
intermission EP with Blue Beach, and then
Yep.
there's Smoke Detector, and then there's kind of the intermission EP with Golden Beats with This Is Decidedly So, and
Yep.
then I take a long fucking break, and I make almost nothing last year until the fall before tour. Like that was like Positive Vibes Only was, I think, one of the first songs I made in earnest, kind of getting back to it. And like that was part of the conversation I had with myself. And this is the conversation I have with myself whenever I've been dormant for a super long time. It's like, so are you a regular motherfucker or what? Like, what's your
Right.
deal? You're
Yeah.
not, you're not, you're not working with your shit. Like, yeah, you're thinking about it all the time. You talk about it all the time. It's obvious you love it, but how are you making something from yourself? How are you getting a new offering from yourself? And I think that was the best I could muster given where I was at on that day, is kind of this like tongue in cheek, not super positive song, that then like from there, I think right after I knocked out the draft to Cool Jerk,
Mm.
and then like 2 weeks later, Def C, which by the way, Def C is such like an awesome catalyst
Yep.
for getting
Yep.
you to get excited about rapping and anything rap related. Because he came over to my crib. I already knew for Cool Jerk that I wanted Cav on it, just because
Mhm.
the beat just screamed Cavalier. So I'm like, all
Mm.
right, let's go. And then, Adam, Adam like said, let me just write something to it, just so I can write something to it. And I'm like, just hop on the song.
Right. Right.
like that's, I mean, he's that guy. He wants to do that all the time. I'm more just like, let's just do the damn thing. If
Right.
that's what you want to do, fucking awesome, let's go. So like,
Mm.
that was kind of like a quick little 1-2 step to get me kind of back into, okay, like we're making records again. Okay, that's cool,
Yep.
and that's also why, I don't know if you saw on the cover, there's the little tag Speedrunner Suite,
Yep.
and it says part one, and that's because this project and two other projects that are in the wings, they all got started roughly 3-ish years ago, and they got put to the side for various reasons. Smoke Detector being a big one of them, because I was focusing on that. And then now in the last year, I've been taking my time to finish
Mm.
all three albums. So there's an album that's all my parts are done, that will come out at some point, and then there's another album that's almost done. I'm a couple songs short of being done, but like that's the tongue. It's like, the whole the speedrunners thing for like Mario, where you try to run through Mario in 8 minutes or something, all levels. And so it's kind of like, yeah, I started this 3 years ago, but we speed ran through three albums in a year basically to get to the finish line. So I thought that was kind of a fitting,
That's funny.
it's a little inside baseball, but I think especially once part two and part three come out, I think people will be like, oh, I get it, because I think right now they're like, what's this? That's also why all the single art is those Running Men logos, is because it's all part of the same universe. So the art for that is the Running Men, the name of the album, and then whatever else in the Speedrunner suite. And then each single cover for this whole series is just going to be that logo with the different album cover in the corner, or the album logo in the corner, to signify what part of the series you're in.
Mm.
The funny thing about what you said, Rich, it made me think like there's a part in the artist brain that always functions the same in terms of it's this little voice saying, what did you actually fucking finish today?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and it's for rappers, right? It as a writer, it was like, oh, did you do any pages this week, motherfucker? Like,
Hmm.
and for sculptors, I'm sure they're like, that hand's done now. You did that. Good shit. You know, like you either did something or didn't do something, and that voice in the back of your head doesn't want to hear any excuses or context.
No.
Uh,
No, it's yeah. I mean, well, to that score, that's one thing. Mercifully, things being done writing wise, recording wise, I've created an efficient way of being like, okay, this is done. When it comes to mixing, that's been a bit more okay. Like I'm gonna be a bit more particular, but thankfully I don't belabor the actual recording process as much, just because it needs to get out, it needs to get at least because and the other thing too is I know people are different about how they treat demos, but for me that demo needs to be listenable to the extent of I don't feel self-conscious showing it to anybody because it sounds good already, and
right.
that is something where like I know some people like let's just cut a rough and I'm like no I don't just want to cut a if we're gonna do it let me just sit down and just put some basic presets so I at least have this sounding presentable to me if no one else so yeah it's yeah like it can be frustrating to know when something's done but I think at least for me I've found a few ways to avoid some of those hurdles.
That's beautiful. No, I would say okay, here's my reasoning why I immediately understood the sour dub is better than smoke detector vibe, right? Uh, because smoke detector is too experimental to be truly cohesive, right? You're because you're covering so much ground and there's like a Harry Nielsen sounding song and a dance song
Hmm.
and a back and forth, verse for verse, like 600 paid, like it's it's got so the tuna melt is capitalism, right? Like it's doing so much. It's doing so much.
What's the dance song on Smoke Detector? I'm curious.
The one about going to Italy, Dream,
Oh, Dreamlight. Yeah, that's kind of like the disco ballad. You're
yeah,
right.
exactly.
You're right.
So like,
Okay. So yeah.
it's and don't we go from that to 600
Yeah.
paid?
Well,
I
I,
mean,
I think I think we talked about this. Like that transition is so Dream Life is side A, side
yep,
B, track
yep,
one, and that's fantasy. It's Ratso Rizzo imagining that he's a top chef in Miami and Midnight Cowboy,
right,
and it's not real. It's total fantasy because it
absolutely,
like I said when we talked about this, that was me at a juncture where I have nothing else to write about where I'm at. How about I write about where I want to be? And right before the shutdown, I went to Italy with some friends for 3 weeks, and it was just this really or 2 weeks or whatever, and like it was a 3 week trip overall. I did a couple solo things before I linked with them, but that time with them was really special, and it was just like you're just in this beautiful place in a really beautiful time of year. And like the cover for that single was this beach that I took a photo of where it's just you see the swirling sands, all the beachfront bars and little like pockets are closed. And
uh,
it's bittersweet because you can tell there was probably a lot of fun had, but now it's over. And that was like the end of the trip too, is that we were about to be heading back to our lives. And um you know that to me was like, man, if I could just go back to that little pocket of
right,
drinking wine and looking at old shit and eating delicious food with my friends, that would just be, wouldn't that be swell? And then 600 paid is meant to just like, now we're back in Chicago. It's fucking like it's not just snowy. It's like that gray snow that's been rolling off the cars. It's gross and you're paranoid and it's just like you're back in it and you're on swivel and the fantasy is over. In Italy, I didn't have to be on swivel. In Chicago, I do. And like that's yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking in a way. But that's why 600 paid is such a dope song is because it's just like we're we're back to business, baby. It's game
absolutely.
time.
The smoke detector will jar you, but there's reasons, right?
Yeah.
And that's why sour dub is a perfect follow up because it's seamless, right? It has goals and missions, but they they're they're within a scope. The scope is realized, as you said, no fat. So like I can totally see having gone from that experience, that like where we're everywhere, we're doing everything, to like this very curated like hip hop album, um, and being like, "Ooh, I love," this one might be better because the experience of going from one to another is awesome. Because this sour dub does what Smoke Detector doesn't do. Does that make sense? So
Mhm.
like they're like, "Oh, this is great," but really the totality of it is great, right? It's
For sure.
Mm.
Well, the other thing I think to talk about the seamlessness of it, the way that I made that happen is I very early on decided that I wanted every song to be done consecutively. So if I was stuck, I was like, all right, well, I know this was the song I thought that was going to be next. Let's maybe take a look at some of the other ones. Maybe there's a different option here. And so essentially every song on that project was created in order. So that kind of allows for that through thread to exist. I think in ways that it doesn't when you're kind of like, now let me hit a randomizer. Let me mix this whole thing to see if this flows better. And I think, there's definitely a way that we could have done that with this album and it probably would have been great. But I just know from my own headspace, it felt healthier and more true to approach it this way, just because, yeah, I don't know. I wanted, I think, to avoid some of those like more left field moments that might jar somebody. Because I know there were certain people that, in responding to me reaching out for them to check out Smoke Detector, they said, I just don't get it. And
mm,
while I think personally like that's kind of bullshit because I don't really know how you couldn't get something so beautiful, I could see why, if it's about understanding the thing as a whole and you're kind of getting a lot of all different things at once, I could see how that might throw somebody. But like, I don't know. It's also, especially with what Iceberg did with his sample choices, and then what we
incredible.
what we
Yeah.
did to like make it work. I don't know how you don't at least try to live with it a little bit. But whatever, man. That's water under the
It's
bridge.
but no, you get there's a lot of people that got into you because of Smoke Detector, because of how much ground you covered, and but like saying the people that where that was too much for them, Sour Dub is here to save that. So it's great. Question for both of you.
Mhm.
I was thinking about this. We take one song from Sour Dub to play in the supermarket as supermarket music. What song are you picking?
Mm.
Supermarket music.
Super. For me, let me look at the playlist. I mean, I was a fan of Cool Jerk. Even positive vibes only or Cool Jerk would be my.
Positive Vibes Only seems like a good supermarket song.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your pick, Rich?
I mean, I think positive vibes only works because I could definitely hear the hook kind of over the speakers and positive,
Yep,
it
yep.
just, I guess it just depends on what time of night or day you're at the grocery store. I know like
Right.
during the height of like pandemic shit, I was doing a lot of like late night grocery shopping and it would be really creepy because you're just like in there with like the shelf stockers
Yep.
and
Yep.
it's hell to get through the aisles because there's just they're stocking the shelves. But anyways, like that was super bizarre. I mean, I feel like Cool Jerk could definitely work because there's kind of like that like kind of more pod. Maybe they had the free coffee at the grocery store that day, so that this is what's happening. I think Rough Waters could be like you're in the checkout line and you're like fucking annoyed. Like, come on. Like I'd like
Yeah.
to go. I'd like to get out of here.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think those are my supermarket picks.
My pick is so if we're talking about like a 24-hour joint, right? And it's like it's the crazy hours, right? With you and the stalkers.
Hmm.
Uh I Morning Moon feels like the right song for that.
That could fit too. I mean, that's if you got the 24/7 grocery.
Yep.
That's that one, that song. So that one's interesting. I that was kind of similar to Dream Life in a way, because I wanted to create, because that's just such a pretty beat, and I wanted to kind of go somewhere with it, because especially Rough Waters is meant to be kind of a disturbing little interlude where like things
Right.
aren't good. Especially going from Joyride into that, it's the Joyride's such a little bitter pill. So like Morning Moon, I think, is almost like, you're coming out the other side of that in some way. Again, is that fantasy or reality? Who's to say? But I think where I went with that is I was thinking a lot about simpler times that had, I think, more overt energies around possibility and hope,
Right.
especially as it relates to the feelings of you've had a really good time. And like, and I think a lot about, and it kind of going back to some of the DIY era stuff that I was telling you about in our little chat earlier. And like, you're riding the bus home after you've been to a party, and you've had a good time, and it's, you're having this intimate moment with the world where like, it's kind of quiet and still, and you're just with your thoughts and thinking, damn, that was great. And then like, it's also, I with the hook, obviously, I it alludes to like a partnership of some sort. I think there's kind of also like allusions to like young love, or like the foothills of like an early stage of a relationship, like, um good chance that I may wake you, especially if someone isn't used to your morning rhythms, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Yep.
So I, or on the same token, maybe you're coming home to your parents or your roommates or whatever, and you've just met someone new, and you're just it's like, damn, like I'm geeked off tonight because XYZ happened, and maybe that is new love, or new things. So I think in some ways it's meant to cleanse a bit, and I think hopefully let people feel that feeling of possibility, because I think that that's something that's really devoid of life right now generally. And I know for myself, maybe it's just age, where I think as you get older you lose more things, and
Mm.
whether that's by choice or not. And I think for me, a big, there's a lot of big things I'm working through. I always seem to tackle all the big things at once, but um one thing for sure, especially as I try to grow as an artist and as an adult, is putting to bed things that just aren't part of my life anymore. And whether that's music I used to listen to, or scenes I would participate in, or people I used to be around, it's just like, I at a certain point you can appreciate what they did for you, but if you want to go further, you gotta, you can't carry everything. And my, I'm a person that has a ridiculous memory. Like I remember so much. I carry a lot of things with me, the slights, the praise, and especially to the former, I'm this year, especially as I work to continue hopefully having a healthy life and career, I've had to make peace with certain things maybe I wasn't ready to make peace with, but there's no point in staying with them anymore. It's like, yo, if I hold on to this is just gonna drown me. And
Right.
I think that's also, I think, maybe what Rough Waters could be looked at too, is just like you're drowning, and you're holding all on to all these things that are just like really not good for you. And I see it in other artists and in other people, in the ways that it hurts them and keeps them from ultimately enjoying the one shot we got at this to do this in our lives. And life can't all be happy, and it can't all just be 100% positive, but we can at least try to have our days be somewhat pleasant, and at least give it a shot to be good. And you have less of a chance of doing that if you can't move the way you need to, because you're weighed down by everything else.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I mean, it's like I was texting with Zilla Rocca, $3 pistol emperor,
The
uh,
man.
about Sour Dub, and I said it's it's a it's a weed album, but it's about why you need the weed to cope, right? Like it's not the because sometimes weed albums. I was thinking about this, the history of kind of weed albums. They'll be like, "Whoa, I'm tripping out, and it's metaphysical," and you're like, all right, man. Like, but the potheads I know, they do it every day, so it's not like that. Like,
Yeah.
they're just they need this shit to cope. And
I
there's a
think
lot of moments where they give you that. Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting because yeah, obviously, yeah, it's an overt pot album in a certain respect, but Plot Twist, I hate like 90% of like pot culture. I think so much of it is low hanging fruit. I think a lot of it's really fucking stupid
Right.
and isn't classy. And I think, I mean, not that everything has to be classy. I mean, dude, we all laugh at Pineapple Express, right? But like,
Right.
it's just to say, like, I think maybe that's also me trying to figure out my relationship with that too. I mean, like, you might be surprised to hear, like, yeah, I've certainly partaken a lot, but
Right.
part of getting older too is like maybe not doing it as much. I mean, and also just not really having the space to do it as much. You got responsibilities. There's work to do, and I think I talked to a lot of artists or just people in general, and I mean like you know the age of like, are you smoking this strain? Are you smoking this thing? It'll make you feel like this. I think that there is a segment of folks, myself included, where we need to be able to feel functional. I think the escapism that might have been part of the act isn't isn't helpful. So, as much as sometimes it's nice to tune out and go elsewhere, I need things that can maybe help me feel shielded from certain things, but then also like I can still like if you call me, I can have a coherent conversation with you and it's not some weird like, yeah, man, like yeah, we're eating chili dogs and fucking
Right.
drooling
Right.
everywhere,
It's nothing
like
too
which
dog.
like
Yeah.
there'll be plenty of time for that too. That guy still exists. But like it's just to say I think yeah, I think about this too. I don't mean to sound so like dismissive of the assertion whatsoever. I'm also coming to terms with the fact that like I've got younger fans that are looking at me now too, and like I don't necessarily want that for them. I mean, hell, even like family members. I have a little cousin who like worships me and thinks I'm like, he thinks it's so cool that I'm a musician and whatnot. And like, I know he's paying attention, and I mean, if I have to have that conversation with him, I will. But like, it's something where I'm acutely aware that if I celebrate something in a certain way that actually could be really harmful to people. I remember years ago, like it's like 2012 or 2013. This is when I was still in my group SEC, and we got booked to open for Asher Roth, right? And it was an all ages show, and I just remember being on stage, and we're kind of on some like wild. But I was funny. I was listening to Slum Village the other day. And I didn't realize how much like we kind of were taking pages of that because they do some pretty horny bars and like
They definitely do. Yeah.
and
Yep.
we were in our early to mid 20s, definitely on some like we're trying to meet some people and hang out type shit. And I'll never forget though being on stage in front of those kids and just being like, oh my God, like I need to hit a reset on how I'm like approaching this and how I'm talking about this shit because these kids are eating this up. And I'm feeling uncomfortable. And it made me realize like how much of the culture I digested had put me in that spot to then pass that on to someone else. And I wanted to stop that shit. It's not okay. And and I think especially in light of like I think a great example of this is like the Woodstock 99 documentary. I watched that in horror and also just kept thinking my parents were fucking right. They were right that I shouldn't be watching this shit. That Viacom shouldn't be shoving this down my throat for
Right.
me to have as a thing at 12 years old. Like thinking I'm lesser because I'm not fucking. That's crazy. And
Right.
think about how that spurs people to make poor life choices because they're feeling lesser than because that's what they were marketed to feel as. And so
Right.
I don't want to participate in any of that shit. I it was that moment I think when I really started to transition to think, okay, I love rap music. I love making music. What parts of this are me? What parts of this are things that have been pushed onto me on some boilerplate shit that I have to discard?
Yeah.
And to make something new. This allows me to transition to more fully doing stuff with singing and doing whatever the fuck I want because all of a sudden I'm not tethered to these tropes of get your hands up, call and response, this, that, and the third. I love a good call and response. My favorite ones when I tell people my Venmo and I see if they'll send me money. But like that's That's the extent of it. So it's just, I don't know. It's interesting to make a project that's absolutely inspired by that, but then also not to have misgivings, but to have a definite sense of like, yo, I don't inherently look at this as like celebratory in that way, especially considering who might be listening. Plot twist, I got a text from Zilla Rocca the other day. Someone DM'd him and said something along the lines of like, this album actually, I think this is an adult. They were like, this actually made me want to start smoking weed. And I'm like, well, that's just funny.
That's
You know,
awesome.
good for
That-
you. If you want to tap in, I'll buy you the joint and the soda water and we
yeah,
can have a hang. But
that's
so
awesome.
I don't know. I don't mean to bring it to such a heavy place, but
No,
like I
this album
yeah.
is a heavy place, right? Like on Ice Cream Cake, there's that like, hey, the same street I walk my dog is where I lost you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an incredible moment. And even in Sour Dub, the song itself, I think there's a whole breakdown about like, uh, they're gonna find the resonance of this in my bones. They're gonna think this is part of my religion, that this is a spiritual thing. Like, and there's just a lot going on, and that's why I wanted to, because my first reaction to listening to Sour Dub was, this is a rapping ass rap album. Like, this is it, because, and we'll talk about Divine Nation, right, a while later, but when with the song Late Fees on Divine Nation, I remember Sleep going to Twitter and being like, my man Rich spits, and people need to know that. And like, this album felt like the deliverance of that,
Mm.
on the first listen. But as I was listening to it, I'm like, there's a lot here, right? There's just a lot here. My favorite Richard Jones song of all time is on here. So,
Which that I was looking at the show notes and that is thrilling. And that
yeah,
that song is there is levels.
yeah. I played it for my family, and I was like, everybody quiet, this is amazing. And everybody's like, is like, I don't think the levels really sank in. I think they were just like, oh yeah, this is great. We're cool. Like, it wasn't, and I was like, no, dude, this is everything. Like, my parents are from Berkeley, right? Like, I was raised, like, what was my, I remember in high school, I went over to my friend's house. They're watching Dog Day Afternoon for the first time. They were all fucked up
Right.
about it, right? And I was like, oh, I watched this as a kid. Like, we grew up on this, and so the notion of the world being this interconnected game that was kind of created against you, and the death all around you as a result of it, and just living with that, like, it's just the best. That song is the best explanation of the paranoia that is always in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's also that one I sat on that beat for so long because it's just such a cool beat. Like I'm like I can't just do some mid on this. Like I need to like feel this out. And when it was time to do it, I was like, okay, let's do this. And for that one, I yeah, it's related to how do you sleep at night in the sense of like the song ultimately in so many words is about death and our subtle complicity in that, in terms of whether that's looking the other way when Empire does it or when the cop down the street does it, and how we're all paying for that. Like literally the line, we paid for that. I paid for that bomb to destroy that kid's school in Gaza yesterday. I paid for that guy to kill this man or woman or person in my city a month ago in some capacity, whether that's literally the dollar or just my money in that being in that pool. And yeah, I don't know. How do you feel good about that? You can't. But that's also why I called it murmurs, because it's always in the background. And that's kind of in some ways like if you do want to survive in this world, you kind of have to put the things that aren't directly in front of you somewhat to the back burner, or like in a certain sense, like in a way where it allows you to at least somewhat function. And in some ways, I don't even, I mean, and granted, that's for your own survival, but then you're also looking the other way on a lot of shit too. So it's a song. I remember I was breaking it down for a friend a couple of days ago because he was like, I love that song, man. That's just it just really gets me going. I was like, do you know what it's about? He's like,
Go,
tell
it's
me.
awesome.
You
It's a
know,
workout
and
jam.
what was it was funny because like when because he it was the it was because I pointed out the line, a fee that can't be paid with cash, only by flesh and ash, and that's my debt too.
Mhm.
And he's like, yeah, okay, now that you say that, I hear that line and it makes sense. I think another line that's related to this is off of Joyride, when I say I hope our children show no forgiveness when they tell our story. Because as a
Mm.
history major, that was one thing that they would, that we would talk about is, do we judge people from the past through the lens of today? Like Abraham Lincoln's a great man, but he went to minstrel shows, or like was,
Right.
possibly most likely racist, right? Is he
Yep.
still a great man, even if those were things he participated in? Because by today's standards, he's a piece of shit for that.
Right.
And
Right.
and by those standards back then, also a piece of shit. But
Right. He also lied to
yeah,
lots of people, right? He went
yeah,
down south, told them it'd be fine. He went up north, told them it'd change. Yeah.
it's all sorts of skullduggery. It's just, yeah. So I think it's it's coming to a certain level of acceptance or peace with, you know whatever we're doing probably isn't enough, and if someone wants to judge me for not doing enough, they're probably right to, and I have to be okay with that. I think a lot
Right.
about karma right now, and something that helps me, I don't want to say sleep soundly at night because that sounds fucked, but like
Mhm.
something that at least allows me to get to tomorrow is, somebody's going to get revenge for what we're doing today, and I can't be mad at that, and they'd be right to. And I hope in life we can come to a place in the world where we can be more peaceable with each other, because I mean, like, I just think about everything I've seen just the last, shit, it's been already, gosh, is that October? So fuck, that's like 11, 10, 11 months, man. And
Yeah.
you just see people that have the same dreams as I do, or people like us do, and they're just trying to live their lives, but meanwhile they can't because
Right.
of what's happening. And I just, yeah, I don't know. I think, you know what? Someday somebody's gonna put us in that position, whether that's me or my future generation, and they're going to be like, why is someone doing this to me? And someone asked that question 100 years prior, why is someone doing this to me? And the answer will be, well, they're doing it because we did it to them, which again, that's a cycle. You have to find a way to cut that. So I don't wish that. I don't want that to be the world. Hey, if we somehow find a way to get the magic bullet for peace, load it up, let's go. But
Right.
I don't know. It's these are some of the things that I kind of was dealing with, especially because, like, given what's happening, it feels kind of trivial sometimes to make art and to perform shit on tour with Prem and Castro. I remember we had a day where I'd read something horrific that morning in bed, and we get in the car and they could tell I was tight and was feeling just not good, and they were like, what's up, man? And I was like, I gotta be real with you, man, I'm not fucking feeling it today. I'm horrified, and the idea of me going to play some fucking rap songs for people just feels stupid, and I don't like this. And I know we got a job to do, and we're having a great time, the three of us, and we're in our own little bubble, but I don't like what I'm seeing, and I'm just really, I'm a bit broken. It's hard to get amped when you can hear about the things that, again, my
Yeah.
tax dollars are paying for. So luckily we found a way to get through and do the show, and I'm a pro in that way. But I think as time goes on, I think artists of conscience do have to ask themselves some of these questions if they're going to be any level of a responsible narrator or provider for one's spirit. If you think about what music is all about, it's so much of it is rooted in religion and in ancient forms of expression, in terms of like just sending out a message, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think we are divorced from that thousands of years after the fact. I don't think we realize that. I think you have to kind of dig a bit, or have a conversation to maybe see that. I think like a great example is, like, I remember a few years ago I saw some footage of Rolling Loud, and this is when the pandemic was still raging pretty fucking hard, and meanwhile here's everyone at Rolling Loud. And it's like, okay, and prior to this, I'm thinking, if we ever get back together to be able to gather in any real capacity safely, what are the reasons that we gather? What are the reasons that we get together? And is it for family? Is it for folly? What is it? And I think in that instance, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, so this is worshiping the golden calf. This is supremely just to celebrate consumption
Right.
and capitalism, and it has nothing to do with the spirit. It has everything to do with just like, look at me. And I think that's something where I don't wish to participate in that. I don't. They throw me a big enough check, maybe I'll change my tune, but we all got bills. But I
We all
just
got
mean
bills.
like, is like a thing? I don't know. I struggle with that, and I think there was a big missed opportunity for us to rethink these sorts of things. And I think instead we've reverted because it's easy. And I get it, man. Doing what's easiest is literally easiest. Changing
Sure.
things is fucking hard. It's frustrating. At a certain point, people are like, fuck this. It's like anyone that like woke up a few years ago and was like, wait a second, man, like maybe what's happening in our country is bad. And then now they've just gone back to bed because it's like, well, that was bad. And, but, I have to live my life. And,
Well, so
I think,
and that's been to jump in. That's been my struggle on the side of like, if you have the murmurs, like paranoia in your head all the time and have for a long time, and you bump into somebody who is just now realizing that the world is like this, right? They're just now like, holy shit, it's not an isolated incident, it's a whole thing, right? Um, and they're really bummed out. Like, I struggle for empathy because I'm like, where the fuck did you think you were living?
yeah.
What
Well,
did you think this was?
I think, yeah, I don't know. In those instances, I just try to like, at the very least, try to find some modicum of kindness to share with them, just
Yeah.
to be like, okay, it's okay. Well, you're here now. Come on. But you're right. I think for some people, it's well, what the fuck you thought it was becomes more pointed when they go back to sleep. When they're
Right.
like, oh, yeah, whoa, I'm so down. Well, anyways, it's bad, and that's the sort of thing where it's like, for me, I know this isn't the answer, but my answer for myself in a daily capacity is I really just try to be like kind to people, strangers, friends. Like that's my contribution here,
Yeah.
is fostering spaces where people can be dealt with in gentle, kind ways, and extending that to as many people as is humanly possible, whether that's just in like passing or in a more engaged setting. Because, I think that's not something that's pushed enough, nearly enough, unless it's on some like weird like Instagram meme, like live, laugh, love adjacent sort of agenda, which
Yeah.
ultimately I think, you can see that in a lot of kind of like Instagram, like personal help influencer jargon, where it's like, is this serving you? And it's like,
Right, right, right.
and shit, you could maybe attach that to what I was saying about letting go of things I'm holding on to. But like, that's, for me, it's not in the same vein as that, because it's, I think there's all sorts of shit that I hold on to and will hold on to that doesn't inherently serve me. I think there's all sorts of things where it's not that it's serving you, but by you being present, you're serving something else. That's a more humble take on it, to
Yeah,
display some
because
humility. And it's like if you do something for your family that makes them happy and is part of your tradition as a family, even if it's not necessarily that something that you want to engage in. It's like going to church for me at this point. Like I'll go up maybe once or twice a year, maybe go to temple once or twice a year. Um, and I know it's important to the people that care. Maybe when my parents are gone, I don't continue that anymore. You know what I mean? Or maybe when those loved ones are gone, we don't continue it. But for this
yeah,
moment, I know it matters to them. Now, in that same environment, if there's something bad happening, something toxic happening, I reserve the right to remove myself. It's like going into a scenario and hearing a pastor say something where you're like, well, I'm not Christian, but I don't think that's how Jesus operates. So I think I'm gonna walk myself out. Like when someone says our God is to be envied, I don't that doesn't work for me. If that's how you're talking, that's one of the seven deadly sins also. Like how are we giving an Easter sermon where we're talking about envy? That's strange.
right.
I say this as I grew up in a mixed faith household, so I've had some interesting experiences on both sides with kind of things that I like and don't like. So you know, I'm still on a never ending journey to figure out where my heart lies in it all. But you know, that this informs some of what I'm talking about today with y'all.
Yeah, no, it's important, and I think the danger with this kind of with the expanded self-care kind of self-help universe is the kind of intellectual critiques that uh used to be given to Buddhism, right? They'd be
Hmm.
like, the problem with Buddhism is there's a way to do it that's very selfish, where you're feeling great and everyone else around you is fucked up,
Right.
right? You don't help the actual community, you don't help the environment, right? So
Right.
there's a way to do self-care where you're looking good and your roommate's dying, you know. Um, and so that's it has to live in the community and live in the world, which is what's cool. This album does that, right? This album is you looking at yourself, but it's also you looking at your environment, at how it's changed, um, and putting yourself in the world. So, Kay, what did you think going from Smoke Detector to Sour Dub? How did you feel about that change?
I mean, it was very like this album. I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously there were some pot, it was like pot influence, but it was very dreamy to me.
Mm,
Uh, and not necessarily in like a weed high dream, like, but it was like very dream like if you were sleeping at night type of thing. Uh,
Mm.
and I mean, what I found very interesting was the the mixing, how it was mixed.
Hmm.
Like it was very like I really liked the production, but the mixing was kind of what stood out to me, like in terms of, so I'd like you to kind of like go into that, like, because it seems like it was a very conscious choice to mix it like what's the word I want to use? Because I feel like a lot of stuff, like the criticism I have for a lot of things today are that it's too polished.
Mm-hmm.
In
Yep.
terms of production, like it's lost the soul. Everything is like flat in terms of the levels and whatnot. But this was like very I don't want to say raw, but it was very, and it felt, I don't even know the word to say it. Like it felt amateurish, but not in like a negative way.
yeah.
Well, I am an amateur, so I don't take
Yeah,
offense.
no.
But I think so. w- I am a I have become obsessed since How Do You Sleep at Night with mixing. I really enjoy
Mhm,
it. It
mhm,
relaxes me, and especially as like I think one of the last frontiers of like control when it comes to like my music. Because I think
mhm,
I used to put it because it was funny actually. I was listening to a song that came up on shuffle from like 7 years ago, right? And it's such a good song. I need to put it out. But it was cool because it was like it was a lot of the sounds you're hearing now, but I was working with an engineer, right? And
mhm,
so like obviously there's a certain polish to that that comes with his expertise in the mix. Shout out Joel Gutman, the man, the myth. Um, but yeah, I think in 2020 having to take over that process because I couldn't be in studio and
mhm,
starting to kind of like figure out my own signature for my sound in that way. I think, you know, he gave me all the tools. He gave me so many of the tools to like think about, oh, these plugins do this. Cause like I had sounds I wanted to play with. I love dirty shit. I love stuff
yeah,
that has texture.
yes,
Cause to your point, I think everything is too polished. And I think like some of this is a revolt to my previous work, and this is no shots whatever to that previous work because I was making definite choices to make polished music. But like when I made my pop EP Vegas with my homie Ryan, you know, Ryan Lofty, you know, you know, that's his world. His world is I am making music for sync and licensing and for composition for
mhm,
DreamWorks or Netflix or whatever. So like, you know, I'm following his lead. I am in his world. I will play by his rules. And I think like those records are awesome. I wouldn't make them now. Or if we were to get back together, I would want to maybe put more of my texture on it to bring it I'd find a way to bring our worlds together more now that I've experienced more. And I think that's also kind of in a way like Back to Vegas is kind of a vague reference to that because when I made the Vegas project, I was broke as fuck. I needed money. And it was one of those things where it's like, well, I could get a job or I could triple down on music and go try to become a songwriter and like pop artist and do all this other shit. And awesome experience. Didn't work out the way I planned and doesn't matter because I'm here, right? And I'm still creating. And I think if anything, like the pandemic brought me back to where I was supposed to be in a lot of respects, or I let's just say a more familiar space that I could, I think, take all the things I learned from these other spaces to really create my own pocket within that. And so like I think Dash Lewis, he, you know, he, one of his comments on it was like he really liked, and a couple other people have said this, he liked how much the beats were kind of swirling and kind of just like we're kind of creating this almost like spherical effect, but then the voice is the core. And like that's what holds down the center.
Yeah.
And like how it was at once like you have a lot going on, but there's always like a focus point for everything. And I,
Yeah.
you know, that was something that I was very proud of in this sense. You know, I'm always getting better, man. I think there's a world where I could have taken a year just to try to mix this quote unquote perfectly. But I
No,
think
see that, and that's the thing for me. And that when I say amateurs, I didn't mean it like as in negative connotation. I meant to like, if this album was polished, like let's say you had like the same production, everything, but you polished it, it would have been a completely different album to me. It
right.
wouldn't have. I don't think it wouldn't have resonated as much with me at being polished. So I think that the mixing actually works in its favor.
Yeah, if this
sure.
was mixed like a Lupe album, it doesn't carry as much weight, right?
Yes.
Emotionally. So, and I to your point, okay, there is a lot of rough mixed stuff in the underground, but it's mixed that way to project grit
Hmm.
that then the MC projects with like 2-minute raps where there's no hook and they're just like rapping gritty over gritty mixing. Um, which is a little bit, you know, chocolate on chocolate situation there.
Hmm.
But the thing about this album is so different, Sour Dub, is that it's beautiful and rough. It's
Hmm.
not
Oh
gritty.
yeah.
It's
I
beautiful
mean,
and rough.
there's some for me. There was some gorgeous musical, like I think Cool Jerk.
Yep.
There was a sample, and then what really stood out to me, the Private Eye.
Oh man.
Okay, that was my favorite track, just because whatever sample, it was a sample, right? I don't know what.
Well,
So whatever
this would be
sample was
that's a
used
sleep
was so
question.
like
Right.
polished and gorgeous, but yet there was still that level, that mixing. There was a level of like a human touch, like a soul to it, and that I think that juxtaposition was like really was really striking to me.
Well, that one's interesting because that one. So, like I said, all this kind of really begins for real, like 2022,
Hmm.
and that was one of the first beats that Sleep sent me. And at the time, I had a totally different concept for that song. It was right around the time that Young Thug and everyone was getting arrested and brought in on conspiracy charges. So at the time, I was like, man, something about this song is so mournful and just like ponderous. I was like, man, let me call this shit Uncle Rico because everyone's getting Rico charges right now. And
Right.
that is, and I was like, and I was like, now let me just ruminate on that. And as time went on, it just as a concept, I just didn't feel as strongly about it. And I was like, man, let me see what else is going on. And like honestly, to get that one over the finish line, I sent it to old Grape God, and
Yep.
what he did helped to serve as a catalyst for me to finish my shit. And
No.
yeah, if you have you interviewed him before?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Definitely.
cool. My
Yeah.
fault. Sorry,
Incredible person.
I'm in the dark on that. My bad. I'm
No,
like
incredible person. Incredible
yeah,
person.
no,
Absolutely.
that whole pocket. So like, I think that's also this is a good moment to shout out the Portland friends, man, like Golden Beats,
Yep.
Milk,
Yep.
Old Grape God, Slick Devious, like that whole I didn't get to meet Slick when I was out there, but like that whole pocket of artists and creators and stuff. I just was really I really loved how much they love each other. I love how much they just want to do art and then eat well and smoke well and
Right.
then repeat and just do that all day. And like that was something where I wish sometimes I felt like I had more of that existence in my own home. And so like I'm just grateful that I got to experience it in their home. And that's also why I knew if I brought him into the mix, he was gonna fucking crush it. Cause like I don't know anybody that can write as quickly as he does and
No.
also packs as much of a punch. Like him and Milk are like that, where like, you know, I write quickly. I write strong stuff. Give me anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour. I'll get you something good. These guys you know, I can't explain it. They just sit down and go, and I just love the elasticity, especially of Old Grape God's mind and how he works. So that especially to the point of mixing choices there. He already sent me shit with like some like effects on it, and I probably annoyed him with this, but I kept it. I didn't. He sent me a dry vocal, and I didn't use it because I was like, let me make this even like more kind of like wavy and maybe a little mysterious and you know maybe even a little annoying you know but like
That's awesome.
ultimate you know but again to the point of texture I wanted you to feel his voice. I wanted
Yes.
you to feel the wispiness. I wanted you to feel the way he's like sliding by you like a jellyfish
Yep.
and it's just
Yep.
kind of you know but he won't sting you. He's gonna be beautiful and he's just gonna lay it down. And also you know more importantly if you listen real closely you can hear the Henny bottle getting popped so he can take a swig before he does the verse, which is something I learned he does when I was out there. You know, every time you do a verse, you got to take a hit of the hen doc before you hop in there. So
Easy.
it's cool to kind of get all these little signature pieces of the you dig so that we could do it. So I just was really grateful that we could do that. I'm really psyched that that's your favorite one, Kay.
That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah.
That's great. And it's just a totally different chamber from Sour Dub, from like Murmurs or something like that. It's
Yeah.
so cool to have different picks like that. To go in a little bit of a, because I promised Sleep that we would do credit to him as a producer. So SINAI uh, is his producer handle, and I was listening to this production on Sour Dub, and I was like, man, this it feels like the bookend for Divine Nation. Like 2021, I was able to talk to Sleep because Sleep Gloriously was an amazing project to me with that
Yeah,
Glorious.
that was a really good
And
project.
I was just obsessed with that. And Divine Nation came out and it was great. I think I may have missed retroactively. Sleep Gloriously helped position him writing wise where he is now, right? With the sense of clarity of mission, right? Like personal stuff, flexing, you know, just that mixture, like just that is Sleep and that is identifiable. I think he nails that down on Sleep Gloriously. Um, his sound, I think, starts to come together on Divine Nation, right?
Mm.
I think the first song, the first beat, like the first second is him, like, you know, hitting the thing and making it hit 4 times in a row, like da 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 da, da bang, you know, and
Yeah.
it's just a real off, weird way to start an album. And like that's what he wanted to do as a producer. It felt like he wanted to like, yeah, I'm gonna make things off kilter, but then I'm gonna bring him back on kilter, right?
Yeah.
Like it reminds me of Doof's production in that way.
One thing to that note, I had suspected this was the case, and to have it confirmed was just all awesome. He made all that shit on his phone, man. That's all koala beats. Like, that's so
Crazy.
cool. Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time I've had someone make an album with me where they were mostly making things off their phone. I had a project from 2013 with my guy Danimal the Choppa, called Rich and Danimal Make a Mixtape, and um, that was I mean, it was more mind blowing then, just because it's like, wait, your phone can do that. But even so, I think to then fast forward to now, it's still mind blowing to me because you're able to get something sounding that good off your
Right.
shit. Like I did some tweaks. Like I definitely took some license with like some of the effects that I maybe would throw into the mix, but it still was really impressive to me the sound he was able to cultivate using that app specifically. And the mastery of it. I think that was also one of the fun challenges is, I think to the point of smoothing things out or kind of polishing. Some of the beats aren't fully on time, or like they kind of like have a stutter steps to them. And I mostly just took that as a challenge to see, well, can I catch it? And that was my approach to like what he was doing. So I know there were a couple of songs where I was like, okay, I gotta like loop this a little more cleanly just so I can land a little more cleanly. But other joints, I'm just like, nah, this is perfect. Like I'm gonna catch it. I got the delivery for it. I know the flow for it. And I think that was a fun challenge, if anything, is like, well, this was as the artist intended. Can I match them?
Yeah, it was a different kind of thing, right? Because Kay, we've heard some artists where they'll be like, I made a really weird beat, and then I rapped really weird over it. Isn't that weird? And I'm like, yeah, okay. But like you were taking really off-speed beats with stutter steps and making them hooky and catchy, but with
Yeah.
with heavy lyrics, and like you made songs that would normally be edgy seem like jams, you know?
For sure. Well, the my goal for most records, I don't ever want to make it seem like I'm working too hard to do it. Does that make sense? Like it's
Right.
not that there isn't effort, but I don't ever want to appear strained. And because I just it's not a it's like finding your own walking pace. The pace that fits your gait and what works for you. Obviously, if you got to kick it up a notch and speed walk it, you can. But like, I know that was like something in life where I was like, how do I move confidently through the world through literally something as simple as walking, right? And I think the same thing can be applied to rapping or music, where it's like, I think there were records that I made where I was really, really pushing to do something, and you can tell, and it's not cute, and it's just not. It don't hit because you can tell I'm straining. Versus when it just flows and when it sounds comfortable without being complacent. I think is the goal, and without sound. I think, uh, for some folks maybe it's a little too casual, but fuck them. So yeah, I think it was something where I, as much as again, finding my center point inside of the din of the beat and creating that nucleus like Dash mentioned. And I think with Sleep, yeah, people could have found a lot of different ways to interpret these songs, but I'm glad that the choices I made did what they did.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's I'm definitely glad about that. And I'm glad the world has this. I think this is I sat with this album, and part of my thought was like, holy shit, isn't it weird? Rich and Sleep are both people that are immediately identifiable sonically. Like, oh, that's Sleep. Like, oh, it's
Hmm.
Rich. Um, you are two of the most directly unique artists in the underground space, right? Um, and to come together and create something that perfectly doesn't exist otherwise is exactly what what we needed. You know, um, I can't see people comparing Sour Dub to anything else. You know, I can't see people being like, it's just like the new Action Bronson. It's not.
Well, I think that's the whole point of going back to the beginning of our conversation. How do I create a sound that's unique to me so people can't inherently trace the lineage? I'm standing on the shoulders of all sorts of people creatively. I think especially in Chicago, there's this guy Wes Restless who, he was doing a lot of the singing and rapping and like, you know, the kind of soulful shit when I was coming up. We're not like especially close, but like that's a good dude. Like, we say what up when we see each other. But like, I think him kind of creating that lane makes it a little easier for someone like me to do. I mean, same as like Anderson .Paak. I think Anderson .Paak, when I saw him hit, I was like, because I think it can be really easy for people to be like, they're doing my shit. I'm jealous. I'm mad. And with Anderson .Paak, I was like, this is just going to make what I do so much easier because he's blending these things together. And I'm not going to do what he does. And he's sure as shit not going to, do what I'm doing. But like the mental gymnastics of he's rapping and he's singing is going to be way less of a thing for people to work through.
Right.
And, making it palatable in that way, it's huge.
Right. Some artists come along to help you understand the artists that come after them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. No, that's true. Yeah. So I'm excited about it. Kate, do you have anything else you want?
No, man.
Yeah, I think we did. Let's go to recommendation corner. I want to start off in reference to you had a great story about performing horny sex raps in front of people, realizing there's kids in the audience being like, what is this? It reminded me of Devin the Dude, Who's That Man, Mama? From Just Trying to Live, which is an incredible album. And what a song. The only song of its kind about that exact experience of like performing your dirty, weird raps and looking and seeing a kid asking their parents about what is this? What does it mean? And having to adjust yourself. So, yeah, shout out to Devin the Dude. But also, shout out to my wife, who's an incredible person. I been going through a lot of crazy shit this week. And my wife has been, she's Batman, like she's always Batman to me. So, but when you see Batman take down the Joker, you're like, that's cool. And then Batman takes down Darkseid. You're like, whoa, holy shit, Batman. So that's where she's at this week.
So your wife is a closet billionaire that's funding Freemusicempire?
No.
This is a whole Nepo project? I'm out.
Yeah, I'm Chance, and she's the sister. We got to do a Chance versus Spike Lee episode. That would be great.
Oh man, do a me versus Spike Lee episode. I'll never forget 2015. My friend Jay Bambi getting a whole basement full of people to chant "fuck Spike Lee" over and over again. There was the summer after Chirac came out, and we were just like, "What is this bullshit?" Like, I had just lost a homie like a year prior, like, and unfortunately, if you live here long enough and whatnot, that's just a part of life. But I just remember all of us just being in shock, just like, what is this, man? Why are you being so smug? Why are you trivializing and trying to like make this weird art piece about our suffering? What do you get from this? And I know his whole thing of if you don't like the movie, pick up your phone and make your own damn movie. It's like, okay, but like when you approach a subject, don't you typically need to have some level of like reverence towards your subject or respect towards your subject, which I don't feel like he did that. He's made some great movies. I'm not gonna say he's not a skilled filmmaker, but like that was a real off note and left a sour taste in a lot of our mouths just because like that was ugly.
He definitely it had the vibes of like you lose someone important and the person comes up to you and goes, it's a great lesson in how grateful you should be to be alive. And you're like, thanks. Now leave, Brenda. It's he was Brenda in that situation. So shout out to Sleep. We'll do Spirit of Baldwin Ave is super groovy. New project he has is dope. He also has an album, Memory, with you know, with Big Flowers. Uh, Shout out to anybody. Go if anybody who's had the PTG2 mixtape, get Sleep's PTG2 mixtape on Bandcamp. I am on it with an 80s baby piece about growing up in the 80s. Um yeah. Yep. I'm really happy about it. I'm really excited to have been on a Sleep project. Um and so there's that. Let me now other stuff. Have I told you about this country album, Kay?
No, which one?
Melissa Carper is who it is.
Okay.
And she kind of her gig is she like sound her music sounds like something you found in a dusty old box in like a relative's attic. Super old country, right? So she released an album called Born in Ya, but it's super romantic. 90% of it is just incredibly romantic, slow, old time country songs. And it's super unique to me. I'm like, cause they're not even doing this in country anymore. Like this is so cool. So I'm sitting with that. Yeah, Born in Ya. Then we got yeah, I'll do yeah. The one behind me is Brigitte Macro, the one that's my background. And Brigitte are like the emotional opposite side of the spectrum to Portishead. Dance music with a female lead singer, but it's like it's fun and happy, you know. They're
Is this some
doing great
French
work.
shit?
Huh?
Is this some French shit?
Uh it's not in French, certainly,
Okay.
but where are they from? It should be Los Angeles, it says. Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say the lady with the glasses and the pinstripe suit.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, if that woman's name isn't like Florence or you know or not, you know, I don't know any good
Yeah.
French female
So
names. Michelle.
the tags on it are pop, disco, house, jazz, pop,
You
Los Angeles.
definitely shoot that
So
over to me. I want to check that out.
yeah, Macro, Brigitte. I love Brigitte. I was telling people about Brigitte for a while. It's a different groove and different space. I love it. But uh, hey, what are you bumping?
Um, Nothing new now. I'm starting to kind of get into like alternatives. So, funnily enough, the band Paramore. I've been getting into their stuff. Oh, yeah, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, Paramore. That's wild, dude.
Yeah, I'm just exploring what's out there. A lot of house music as well. So
Rich, what do you got?
So I'm going back in time. I'm a little over the place. As you know, I drive around the city a lot for my job, so music is a really important thing to have on deck. Plot twist though, there have been some podcasts recently, specifically from Tour, the El Chapo twins, the Flores twins surviving El Chapo shit is crazy. Season 1 especially. I feel like Dream Beach from Detroit.
Mhm.
He's got that album Volcano, which he came out with. I think it was like either like late last year or early this year. Really, really loving that album. I've been listening to a lot of Hendrix. Electric Ladyland's like my comfort album if I'm feeling like lost. And I listened to some songs off of some of his other stuff, but Tour we actually hunkered down and ran Access Bold as Love all the way through for me for the first time, which was great. I really dug that. Um the big so there's a bar in Chicago called the Old Town Ale House, and it's a legendary spot. It's like where like Mike Ryko and like all the old school journalist clique would go get absolutely shit housed. And it looks like the place where these people would go and get absolutely shithoused. And they've got an incredible jukebox, just like some of the best blues and jazz and just all sorts of stuff. And the walls are covered in these, like, I think like crepa, or like,
Mhm.
some sort of like the kind of waxy kind of crayon adjacent stuff art of like things like Blagojevich in jail showing off his ass tat, or Gary Coleman sitting in a bar stool smoking a cigarette, things of that nature. Anyways, I'd seen this guy's stuff in the jukebox years and years ago, Freddie King, and I was hanging out with my buddy in Michigan this week for his bachelor party, and him and his family, they're just big music people, and their record collection's crazy. And so they threw on this album by Freddie King, Getting Ready. And I was listening to it, I was like, oh, this is great. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these notes hit, and I'm like, I know that. And it's the theme song from Eastbound and Down. And so, like, I'm like, this is some full circle. So I ran his album back maybe like 6 times, like a couple days ago, just like in succession. It was just so cool to run that. He also put me onto this Jamaican artist, Garnett Silk. I don't know anything about him. Apple Music says that he died tragically. I know that, so I'll find out more. But he has an album called It's Growing that I really dug. Have been enjoying this week. And then last but not least, just on some for me type shit. I'm doing a piece with Next Movement podcast next week, and they have a segment. It's like, let's talk about one of your favorite albums,
Right.
and I felt spiritually called to talk about Big Shots, the Charisma Peanut Butter Wolf album, just because like that's another one of my comfort listens in terms of just like a good album that I can throw on, and like, I feel like I get something out of it. And so I think, as you can see, I'm going everywhere from like footwork, dance shit, to
Yeah.
blues, to dance hall, to hip hop, to God knows what. So listeners, go forth, enjoy.
Absolutely.
More where that came from.
Absolutely. And by the way, shout out to Ice Spice. If you want to come on here and talk about poop jokes, we can do it. We can have a poop joke episode with Ice Spice. We go in
an episode. You think you the shit? You ain't even the fart.
Gosh.
We need to talk about these poop jokes, Kay. You ready for 90 minutes on Ice Spice poop jokes? Anyway.
Oh gosh.
Well, thank you for being here, Rich.
Yeah, man.
The compliment I would give you is, my wife will say when I'm playing you in the car, she'll be like, Rich is one of those people where, like, sometimes when the music comes on, I forget I know this dude. Just sounds like some crazy dope music on the radio.
Man, that's a very nice thing to say. The inverse I get a lot is, and a lot of it is from people that do know me, is like, I feel like this is like the best way to get to know you.
Yeah.
is these out. I mean, and that was from the very beginning of my career. My very first album, Sweater Weather, I remember I played it for a friend, and she was just like, I feel like I'm listening to you, and like, this is, if someone wanted to know who you are, this is it. And I think that, that's indicative of a lot of the music in my career, whether that's making like horn dog stupid rap music at the beginning to like, more highbrow shit now. It's just where I'm at is what's gonna be put out there. So that's very nice of your wife to say that.
Yeah. I mean, it's that sometimes you can hear the underground in a lot of this music. And so she's always just like, this just sounds like, badass music on the radio. So that's a very small group of people who she feels like that about, and you're top of that. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Kay, we got 3 new Patreon subscribers this week, 2 new yesterday. Like, holy shit, man.
Beautiful.
I think I'm still paying your old WordPress page. I don't think I ever switched over. So do you still get that money?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. As long as you're still getting that money,
and updates
man.
are still going on the WordPress for people who are still
great.
Make it over.
Great.
But like,
I'll migrate one of these centuries.
I I cut K in on the Prophets the same way Suge Knight used to cut Tupac in. Like just buy him some shit sometimes. Just
Are you gonna? Are you gonna? Are you gonna? Are you? Don't kill K. Is this alluding to you
No,
eventually going to Vegas to a boxing match and you're gonna kill K? Man, come on.
you know the stories where like
K, I got your back, bro. We're not gonna let Dan do this to you. We're
You
not gonna
got
let this
Tay,
happen.
so there'll be no mystery, if anything.
no miss the K. They like there was the stories about like Pac would go up and be, "Where's my money?" And he'd be like, "I got you a car, man. You."
There's a blunt and check that center console. There's a blunt in it.
Boom. But yeah, no. So thank you for everybody supporting Free Music Empire on the free
Absolutely.
or the whatever side. Like the Patreon, get the updates. Got more shit. There'll be rants coming. There'll be bonus rants as well. I got some of those brewing. But yeah, I appreciate everybody.
Much love you.
What will tomorrow